On the coldest night of winter, a 17-year-old homeless girl named Maya huddled in a doorway, having starved for 3 days straight. When a luxury car suddenly stopped and a pregnant woman in designer clothes collapsed bleeding on the road, everyone just drove past. Maya barely had enough strength to stand, let alone help someone else. But something inside her wouldn't let her walk away. She found an old handcart and pushed this stranger 8 blocks through the storm to the hospital, collapsing from exhaustion at the emergency room doors. What Maya didn't know was that the woman she had just saved was married to one of the world's richest billionaires, and what happened next shattered both their worlds forever. Before we dive in, tell us in comments, where are you watching from? The rain hammered the cracked pavement like bullets, each drop a reminder that Maya had nowhere to run. She pressed herself deeper into the doorway of the abandoned store, her stomach gnawing at itself with a hunger so fierce it felt like her body was eating itself alive. 3 days. 3 days since her last real meal, unless you counted the half-eaten sandwich she'd found in a dumpster behind the cafe on 5th Street. The city moved around her like she was invisible. Expensive heels clicking past, designer umbrellas shielding faces that never looked down, never saw the 17-year-old girl slowly disappearing into the concrete. Maya pulled her threadbare jacket tighter, feeling the cold seep through the holes like icy fingers searching for her bones. Then the scream shattered the night. A woman stumbled across the street, her designer dress torn. One hand clutched to her swollen belly, while the other reached desperately toward the empty air. She collapsed just 20 feet away, her body crumpling like a broken doll on the rain-soaked asphalt. Blood pooled beneath her, mixing with the rainwater in crimson streams. Maya's heart exploded into motion. Every survival instinct screamed at her to stay hidden, to remain invisible, to protect the nothing she had left. But something deeper, something that hadn't died despite everything, pulled her from the shadows. She had no idea that the woman bleeding on the street was married to one of the world's most powerful men. She had no idea that this single moment would shatter both their worlds forever. But before Maya could understand what this moment would cost her, you need to know who she really was beneath the dirt and desperation. Her name was Maya Chen, though no one had spoken it in months. Once, that name had meant birthday parties with pink frosting, bedtime stories read by gentle hands, and a mother who smelled like vanilla and promises. Once, she'd been someone's daughter, someone's whole world. The fire had taken everything in 8 minutes. 8 minutes to turn a warm home into ash, to steal her parents' voices forever, to transform a sheltered 12-year-old into a ghost haunting the city's forgotten corners. 5 years on the streets had taught her that hope was a luxury she couldn't afford, that trust was a weakness that could kill you, and that hunger was the only constant companion who never left. Every morning, she woke to the same ritual. Check the dumpsters behind the bakery on Morrison Street. Avoid the police patrol at 9 a.m. Find somewhere dry before the afternoon crowds could report her. Her fingers had learned to move like a surgeon's through garbage, finding the pieces of other people's lives that might keep her alive another day. But through it all, she carried her mother's silk scarf, the only thing that had survived the flames. Midnight blue with silver threads that caught light like captured stars, it was supposed to bring luck, her mother had said. Maya wrapped it around her wrist every night, a talisman against the darkness that seemed to swallow everything else. Tonight, as she stared at the woman bleeding in the rain, that scarf felt heavier than ever, as if it was whispering that some moments demand everything, even when you have nothing left to give. The transition from Maya's memories to reality felt like being pulled underwater and then gasping for air. The black Mercedes had appeared like a shadow against the storm, its sleek body cutting through the rain with predatory grace. Maya watched from her doorway as it lurched to a violent stop, tires screaming against wet asphalt. The passenger door flew open before the car had fully stopped moving. The woman who stumbled out looked like she'd escaped from a magazine cover, until Maya saw the terror etched into her perfect features. Her designer dress, probably worth more than Maya had seen in her lifetime, was already soaked and clinging to her heavily pregnant form. She took 3 unsteady steps before her legs betrayed her, sending her crashing to the pavement with a cry that cut through the storm like a blade. Cars swept past her like she was debris. Headlights illuminated her for split seconds. A pregnant woman bleeding on the road, then moved on, drivers too busy, too scared, too wrapped in their own worlds to stop. The Mercedes driver never even got out. He just sat there, engine running, as if waiting for someone else to solve his problem. Maya's legs felt like water. Her vision blurred from hunger, her body screaming that she barely had strength to keep herself alive, let alone save someone else. Every rational thought told her to stay hidden, to let someone stronger handle this. But as she watched the woman's hand press desperately against her belly, protecting the life inside, Maya felt something crack open in her chest. She thought of her mother's last words. "Take care of others, sweetheart. That's how we stay human." The silk scarf slipped from her wrist as she stumbled forward into the storm. The rain felt like ice needles against Maya's skin as she dropped to her knees beside the woman. Blood mixed with rainwater, creating crimson rivers that disappeared into the storm drains, along with what might be this stranger's life. "Help!" Maya's voice cracked as she screamed at the passing headlights. "Someone help us!" But the cars moved like sharks, circling around them without stopping. One sedan slowed, the driver's face illuminated briefly behind rain-streaked glass, then accelerated away as if avoiding a pothole. The woman's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glazed with pain. "My baby," she whispered, her manicured hand clutching Maya's threadbare jacket with surprising strength. "Please, my baby." Maya tried to lift her, but the woman was dead weight, probably 130 pounds of designer clothes, and desperation that Maya's malnourished frame couldn't budge. Panic clawed at her throat. The nearest hospital was 8 blocks away. She might as well try to move a mountain. Then she saw it, an abandoned shopping cart tilted against the alley wall, probably dumped by some other homeless person. Maya's heart hammered as she wrestled it onto the sidewalk, its rusty wheels shrieking like dying animals. Getting the woman into the cart nearly broke her. Maya's arms shook, her vision swimming from exhaustion, but somehow she managed to cradle the pregnant stranger inside. The woman's breathing was shallow, her designer dress now more red than white. Block by block, Maya pushed through hell. Her sneakers slipped on wet pavement, nearly sending them both tumbling into traffic. Pedestrians stepped around them like they were street trash, their umbrellas creating walls of indifference. A businessman actually shoved past them, muttering about "these people," blocking the sidewalk. Maya's lungs burned, her muscles screaming in languages she didn't understand. But every time she wanted to collapse, she heard her mother's voice. "That's how we stay human." 4 blocks left. The woman's grip was getting weaker. The emergency room doors blazed like heaven's gates under the fluorescent lights. Maya summoned every molecule of strength left in her body and screamed, "Help! She's bleeding! The baby!" The response was immediate and overwhelming. White coats exploded through the doors like a medical army. A stretcher materialized from nowhere. Hands, so many hands, lifted the woman from the shopping cart with professional precision that made Maya's clumsy rescue attempt seem like child's play. "Pregnant female, approximately 30 weeks, possible placental abruption," someone shouted as they wheeled her inside. The automatic doors swallowed them whole, leaving Maya standing in the rain with an empty shopping cart and the sudden crushing realization that her legs had turned to liquid. She hit the pavement hard. When consciousness flickered back, Maya found herself on a hospital bed, wrapped in warm blankets that smelled like industrial detergent and miracles. A kind-faced nurse was pressing a juice box into her trembling hands. "Easy, sweetheart." Small sips. The woman's voice was gentle, but Maya caught her exchanging worried glances with another nurse. They'd seen the torn clothes, the dirt under her fingernails, the way her cheekbones jutted like broken wings. Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway, still wearing surgical scrubs. "The woman you brought in, she's stable. The baby's heartbeat is strong. You got her here just in time." His eyes held something Maya hadn't seen directed at her in years. Respect. "If you'd been 5 minutes later, we would have lost them both." Maya clutched the juice box, tasting sweetness for the first time in days, while trying to process that she, invisible, worthless Maya, had actually saved 2 lives. But she had no idea that the real story was just beginning. Rachel Sterling woke to the sterile smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of machines monitoring her heartbeat. And her babies. Her hand instinctively moved to her belly, relief flooding through her as she felt the familiar flutter of movement inside. "Mrs. Sterling?" The nurse's voice was gentle but urgent. "How are you feeling?" "My baby!" "Safe. Both of you are safe, thanks to an extraordinary young girl." The nurse's eyes softened. "She pushed you here in a shopping cart through the storm, collapsed from exhaustion right outside our doors. We've never seen anything like it." Before Rachel could process this information, the hospital room door burst open with the force of a hurricane. Alexander Sterling, Forbes' 3rd richest man, the tech mogul whose face graced magazine covers worldwide, looked utterly destroyed. His perfectly tailored suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed with panic. "Rachel." He crossed the room in 2 strides, gathering his wife's hands in his trembling ones. "When your security team called, when they said you disappeared from the car..." His voice cracked. "Alex, I'm fine. But there's something you need to know." Rachel's voice carried wonder and disbelief. "A homeless girl saved our lives, a teenager with nothing. She risked everything for strangers." Alexander Sterling, a man who commanded boardrooms and moved markets with his words, stood speechless. In his world of calculated risks and strategic moves, this didn't compute. Someone with nothing had given everything for his family. "Find her," he said finally, his voice carrying the weight of absolute determination. "I don't care what it costs. Find her." They found Maya exactly where she'd started, in the same doorway, clutching her mother's silk scarf like a lifeline. 2 days of searching the city's forgotten corners had led them back to the beginning, where invisible people went when the world stopped looking. The black sedan pulled up slowly this time. No screeching tires, no emergency. Rachel Sterling stepped out carefully, her movements deliberate and gentle, as if approaching a wounded animal that might bolt. In her arms, wrapped in the softest blanket money could buy, slept her baby daughter. Maya's eyes darted between Rachel and the hospital volunteers flanking her, calculating escape routes. "I don't want money," she said quickly, her voice defensive. "I didn't do it for money." "I know." Rachel's voice carried no pity, only profound respect. She sat down on the wet pavement beside Maya, her designer clothes touching the same concrete that had been Maya's bed. You did it, because that's who you are. For the first time in 5 years, Maya felt truly seen. Not as a problem to be solved or a charity case to be pitied, but as a human being whose actions mattered. I'm not offering you charity, Maya. Rachel's words were careful, weighted with understanding. I'm offering you a door, not a leash. A place to rest, food to fill your stomach, books to feed your mind. But the choice to walk through that door? That's yours. Maya looked down at the sleeping baby, the life she'd helped save, and felt something crack open in her chest. Hope, maybe, or just the possibility of hope. Her mother's scarf fluttered in the wind like a blue prayer flag, finally ready to let her daughter come home. 6 months later, Maya Chen stood at a podium wearing clean jeans and a crisp white shirt that actually fit. The auditorium was filled with faces. Donors, volunteers, students, all looking at her like she was something special. The girl who had once been invisible was now impossible to ignore. People keep calling me a hero, Maya said, her voice steady but humble. But I don't see it that way. Heroes are supposed to be strong, brave, fearless. I was none of those things that night. She paused, her fingers unconsciously touching the silk scarf now wrapped around her wrist. No longer a desperate talisman, but a reminder of where she'd come from. I was just someone who cared when others didn't. Someone who remembered that we're all connected, even when the world tries to convince us we're alone. Her eyes found Rachel in the audience, holding her healthy baby daughter. The truth is, I didn't save anyone that night. Choosing to care, that's what saved me. The applause was thunderous, but Maya's final words cut through it like a whisper that somehow reached every corner of the room. Kindness isn't about what you have. It's about what you give when no one expects it.